Welcome to Innovators at the Intersection. I'm Jordan Weiss, and I'm thrilled to share stories of visionaries and creatives at the crossroads of culture and STEAM. Our monthly podcast and bi-monthly publication highlight change makers that are shaping a better tomorrow. We're really excited today because today we are debuting our new Culture of Sport series. And we are honored to have Danique Liddell with us. Danique, so nice to have you here today.
Thank you. It was a pleasure. I really was excited when you said to come do the interview, and here I am.
Well, let's dive right into it. And so tell us a little bit about your background, where you grew up, a little bit about yourself. And I know, this is the Culture of Sports series. Your father was a Golden Glove boxer, correct?
Yeah, my father was a Golden Glove boxer back in like the 70s or something like that. It was just something that like the random fact that like my family would talk about. Like, oh yeah, Jimmy was a boxer. He was a Golden Glove, winner back in the 70s. So, it was just something that would have randomly come up at the house. But we always watched boxing. That was like one of our favorite sports.
So you remember how young were you when you were watching it? Like when
Well, I can remember boxing my whole life.
Really?
Yeah, my whole life. Yeah. And then like when I actually got into like watching the sport, because I remember my grandma has all sons. So, it was her and like her husband and then just all her sons, and then I was born, I was the first girl in a generation of boys. And then I had my older brother. So it was kind of just like me and her, like, as the girls and her house. And she told me, well, you know what? You better pick a sport, because it was just sports always watched in the house. So we always watched the Knicks, of course. Like that was like you have to watch basketball. So we all were big, huge Knicks fans in my family. But boxing was the sport that I chose. Like instead of like you say football or like whatever, like I chose to watch boxing. So when I really started like honing in, like paying attention, was probably like when Mike Tyson was boxing.
I was going to ask, what aside from your father, what actually drew you to boxing?
I just liked the action. I like back then, like you really didn't see like you saw the lead up, but there was no YouTube or anything like that. So it was different. Like the lead up, you kind of saw what was going on, like in the news, like like when you would see like, oh, these boxers had a press conference and Mike Tyson said this, and it was kind of just more like that. It wasn't as like now we can actually see the press conference like really live. Like, we can see the weigh-ins, the press conference, like all these things on YouTube. So now you can follow it a lot, like closely, like more closer. But back then it was more vague.
Right.
But I still loved watching the whole thing. So like I would watch, I would read what was going on in the newspapers. I would watch the news, like, remember back in the days they had like these, the sports, it would be like at the end of the news.
Yes,
and
always.
Would be like the sports.
Yeah, the last, it's always like the last like 3, 5, 4 minutes. Yes.
Yeah. So that would,
they didn't give enough run. They should have given it more run, right? The sports?
Yeah, unless it was like a headline, something that was like major that was going on, it was at the end.
Yeah,
so, I would always like watch and see if they were going to say something about like one of the upcoming fights that was coming up.
Wow. Do you remember? Do you remember, not to keep going, but we're talking about sports here.
Yeah.
Was there any fight specifically that you remember that really stuck with you? Like
that like really like made me love the sport?
Yes.
Not really in particular.
Okay.
Like just so many. Like I just watched like all of them, because it was a sport that my uncle, like my dad's one of my dad's younger brothers. My Uncle Greg was like really into boxing, So I would like just sit there. He'd watch like the old fights, like Sonny Liston fights, and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So like when they would come on like randomly, on ESPN, I think would play them sometimes. He would watch some, and I'd sit back and I'd watch those with him. And of course, like Muhammad Ali is like, he's my favorite boxer.
Yeah.
Like older, like just overall boxer, he's one of my favorites. He is my favorite. And then so you would watch those old fights too, and then you would like bring it up to modern day,
right?
And like so back then, like say I would watch like a Muhammad Ali fight on a special, and then I would watch like a Mike Tyson fight or a Floyd Mayweather fight, because my Floyd Mayweather, started. I started watching him too, like the late, like early 2000s, something like that. Yeah, so like when he was like really.
So you're in it.
Yeah,
you're in it.
Yeah. When he was like really like a younger in his career, like I probably watched his whole career go, but
Mayweather.
Mayweather.
So your mom was more on the creative side.
Right.
She was a jazz singer.
My mom was a jazz musician.
And your dad, Golden Gloves boxer, but his day like
no, he worked for MTA.
Right.
So like my dad worked for MTA like daily. Like by the time I was actually born, like in the 80s, he was not boxing anymore. Like there was there was no like by the visit, like visits to the boxing gym and stuff like that.
That's all right though, but he opened the door for you.
Yeah. It was something that we watched all the time. And I grew up in a very traditional household. So
where'd you grow up? Yeah, where did you grow up at?
Well, between Queens and Long Island.
Okay, all right.
Yeah,
so New York, got it.
So I did both. Like on the weekends, like when my parents divorced, like we moved to Long Island, and so we'd go back every single weekend to Queens, and we'd be there every holiday, all the vacations from school, all summers, all those things. So I literally grew up in two different areas. One Queens, one Long Island. But it was it was very interesting to see the different dynamics of my parents. Like, because my mom, like you said, she was a jazz musician.
Right.
And, like, she worked as well, too.
Right.
But she loved music, like, so much. And so did my dad. Like, don't get me wrong. Like, they were both very into entertainment.
Right.
Like, the entertainment industry, I was like, but my mom was a music. She composed music. She writes music. She sings music. She sings in different languages.
Oh, wow.
She has a beautiful song that she sings in French. So, and then she played with her cousins in the band. But my youngest memories were going to Manhattan with her. Like, I was probably like 5 or 6 years old. Like, my mom would go to like do these photo shoots and stuff like that. And she would take me and my older brother with her.
Right.
And that's probably how I fell in love with the whole entertainment industry.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting because it's like, to music and sports.
Right.
Which,
and it goes hand in hand.
Right. We were just talking about it. Right.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess it's always been like that, right?
I think so, because even if you watch like the really old, like we were saying, the Muhammad Ali fights and, the George Foreman fights, like those things, there was, if you look in the crowd, it was like star-studded.
Yeah. Always.
Like, all these stars were there. You had musicians, actors, producers, like all these different people, all these different celebrities that were there, along with like the average everyday fan.
Exactly.
If you look in the music. So, and the same thing, like when you watch basketball, like if you kind of look at you look at like the floor seats.
Right. It draws people. Yeah, it brings people together. I mean, sports brings people together. Music brings people together. So that's really, that's cool. And you have a unique, I guess must have had a really unique upbringing because you had the creative side and then you had the sports side. So, and
like my dad literally had one job. Like he worked for MTA like my whole life, his whole life. The whole time I knew him. Yeah. Unfortunately, he passed away. But my mom was always an entrepreneur. Was always like the more creative, like the musician, like you're saying, with her cousin in jazz bands, and she did all these different things in the music industry. And my dad just worked for MTA. And I don't want to say just worked for MTA because I never want to minimize that, because
every day waking up it is
that career. First of all, it's hard for people to get into
it.
MTA.
The city job, it's not easy, right?
No, and the dedication that he had to go there every single day, like to make sure like his kids were taken care of and his family was taken care of. It's a lot. It's so I'm always proud of what he did. For us.
And he opened up the door with boxing. Obviously, that connection to what you're doing today. So So, you've worked in some different fields, but your background, I guess, coming out of college was journalism and media, correct? That's what you focused on. But when you got out of school, like so many of us, you don't necessarily end up doing the thing that you studied in college. So you got into, I guess you were in the healthcare space for a number of years.
So this is the thing. Like, so when I first went to school, like when I first went to college, fresh out of high school, I said, I want to be a journalist. I'm going to be a news anchor. I'm going to be.
You knew
that's what I wanted to do. I wanted to be a news anchor.
But you knew this right out of. You're saying right out of was.
Like high school.
High school, yeah.
In high school, like, like me and my friends, like we always like, we loved like all the whatever, TRL and like all that stuff.
Okay, I got you.
I wanted to like do that,
Yes,
and I don't know if you remember like Hype Williams. I was like,
yes. He completely like, movies, like short movie, videos. Right. With hip hop. Yes.
Music video movies.
Yes.
So I was like, maybe I'll be like the first female to do that.
Like,
like the first female Hype Williams.
On the music side.
My backup plan was either that or I was going to be a news anchor. The news anchor was like my backup plan, but I knew that I would be in media. Like that's like what I wanted to do. But then when I had my son when I was very young. I was only 20 years old when I gave birth to my son. So it kind of like my life kind of took on a more serious, like, kind of thing. And, his dad and my mom were just like, well, you should probably do something that's more, professional. Like, now you're going to be a mother.
Yes.
Like, and you're going to have a family now.
Right.
So just do something more professional. And of course, he was like on board with that. Like, yeah,
Right.
that's what you should do.
Right.
So me, like, just being young and like, I was like, okay, fine. So, I kind of put that on the back burner. I kind of really just gave it up. Like, I didn't even know that I'd circle back around to it.
Right.
So that's what I did. And I went to work. My mom's like, okay, well, put an application in the hospital. So I went to go work in the hospital.
Mm-hmm.
I worked at a maternity ward and L&D. I
L&D is
for labor and delivery.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
You actually worked?
Yeah. So we transitioned the babies. I worked in the nursery. Like, I was the one who brought your baby in and, helped teach breastfeeding and like all that stuff. And we would always like have all the babies. I'd probably be assigned, I don't know, like maybe 8 babies. Like, cause it'd be like two of us in there,
right.
And we'd take care of all those babies. We'd get them dressed, like
right.
All that stuff. Get them swaddled up
right.
and bring them out to their moms. We'd take care of the babies who were unfortunately left there, like by their parents for different reasons. And then they would transition to where they were going. So it was very active and it was beautiful because I love babies and they were cute. And, I was a young mother at the time.
Yeah.
So it was easy for me to take care of these babies. I was doing it at home.
Right,
So it was like a great job. Like, it was fun. Like, we'd sit around and just talk. But then like my son, when he went to, I would say like first grade, I was bored at home. So I'm like, oh, maybe I should like go, work like full time. So I transitioned to go work in the operating room. Completely different.
Oh, wow. That is a big shift.
Completely different than working in the nursery.
Yeah. So
like,
were you
completely different?
Oh, so how did
completely different?
Yeah. I
so
mean,
now you're going from like having babies where, obviously it's a serious situation and, it's an emergency. But when you're working in the operating room, like I ran the operating room, like I was an operating room coordinator. So I ran the front desk, like along with the head nurse there, with managers. And it was
must have been, I was going to just say, it must have been very intense.
You have to make sure you get all the traumas in. You have your cell phones, you're running around, you're making sure everything, all the rooms are, what doctors are going to go in what rooms, calling the surgeons at home, telling them, we have emergencies, we have add-ons, this, that, just so much. It was just, I learned so much about the human body.
Yeah.
A lot past, delivering babies.
Yeah.
Past, like just basic knowledge that you would get in the healthcare industry. When you work in the operating room, it's really like the top tier of the hospital.
Right.
Not to minimize anything in the hospital because everything in the hospital is important, but the operating room is such where it's just a different, anyone who works in the healthcare industry knows the operating room is like a different animal.
Yeah.
So we had the operating rooms, then we had the cardiac suites where they do all the cardiology cases. But yeah, it was a lot. I would run the trauma logs, the trauma meetings, all those things. And it was different. Like, deal with the surgeons' personalities they're great people, but, they're intense.
I was going to say, and it's not for everybody,
No.
like, because you're on the front line witnessing some serious stuff, so you have to have a certain disposition, I would think, to be able to even just work in that type of, that area and just, the situations that would come up and just a lot of things that you would see and you would hear. You have to
kind of think on a dime. It's, it's a lot of like 1, 2, 3, it's right away. And your decision has to be split second and it has to be the right one. Like, you have to do, it has to be very precise. I would say like that, to make sure that the operating room works a certain way. So the desk has to work a certain way in order for everything else to smooth and everything to flow.
Right.
And if the desk is out of control and it's chaotic, then forget about it with the rooms. And,
That's interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, but
it's a whole method to the way it works. I actually loved working there. I met some great surgeons, some great anesthesiologists, great nurses, great techs, just great people, all around. And I was really blessed because I was able to bring my sister in to work with me.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, now
so kept
she
it in the
still
family.
works with me. Yeah, they were looking for someone. So I was like, oh, my sister, she needs a job. So they were like, "Oh yeah, great, get her in."
Well, because you probably did you probably were great.
Yeah,
so if you did your thing and you brought in your sister.
I brought in my sister, and she worked there. Now she works as a surgical technician, first assist with the doctors. So she actually stayed working in the operating room. I always, I love healthcare and I love everything that I do, but my passion has always been journalism. and boxing. It's always kind of like been like the two things. So I was able to merge that into what I'm doing now.
Yeah. Going back a bit, so your husband passed, right?
Right.
When your son was only...
My son was 5 years old. Yeah.
Yeah. So that must have been
It
really...
was very, yeah. It was very...
And this was around the same... This is when you were working in the healthcare space?
Yeah. I started working in healthcare when my son was, I think, he was probably like 6 months, 7 months, something like that, when I started working in L&D, labor and delivery.
Right, yes. I got it now. Yep.
Yeah. My son was probably like, 6 months old, 7 months old, something like that. Like probably barely walking.
Right.
And his father passed when he was 5. So, or 4. Yeah, he was 5 years old. So he was like just going to kindergarten and stuff like that. So like I literally was working part-time in the hospital, like a housewife, basically. And when my son's father passed away, I had to like do everything. And I was like, oh my God, this is a lot.
You had to take on both roles.
But, it was okay, So I took care of my son, and then he went to first grade. So he was gone all day long. So I was like, what am I going to do? Like, what do I do? So then I was like, all right, well, I'm going to go work full time. And that's when I got to work in the operating room. So I did my schedule like 7 to 3, the same time that he was in school. So, I'd get him up, put him in, give him tickets to my mom's or my mother-in-law's house. They would drop him off to school. I would go to work. I would get out at 3. He got out at 3. I picked him up, did his homework, and all those different things.
Yeah.
So.
Well, it sounds like you were able to really roll with, the situation, and you just kept going. And you were young when all this happened, so it showed.
I was only 20.
It showed you resilience. Showed you resilience.
And then when he was probably in high school, is when I started working with a corner focus. I had a friend, actually, my friend, he worked with me in the operating room.
Okay.
He was a big sports guy, Blue Ball Sports TV.
There's the connection.
This is like where I really...
Well, that's crazy, though, because...
I really connected here.
Yeah.
In the operating room.
Right. So...
that's
those intersections.
Yeah, that was the intersection right there. Yeah. So I talked to him about boxing. He's like a huge sports fan.
Right.
My friend Cheyenne, has Blue Ball Sports TV, a huge platform on YouTube. And I would talk to him there, whatever. And then I remember I went to, I believe it was a Jamel Charlo, one of his boxing matches at the Barclays Center.
Okay.
My sister and I, we went just to, go see the fight or whatever. And he was there. So he's like, call me when you get here or whatever. So I called him when I got there. And we watched the fight. The fight was great. Jamel Charlo won. And afterwards, he said, okay, I'm going to go to the post conference. And we were like, oh, okay. But I'm only used to watching the post conferences on YouTube,
Right. So this must have been really exciting. Yeah.
So me and my sister great. Like, can you get us in the post conference? And he's like, yeah, just come with me. So we walk with him downstairs, in the Barclays Center. It's in the basement, like where they have all those things. And we went to the post conference, and I was like, oh my God, this is amazing. You get to see like all the journalists, talk to the boxers, like talk to their coaches, like and it was like live. So it was great. And from there, I was like, this is like awesome. So then we went back, we spoke here and there, like while I was in the operating room, we both worked together. So we would talk, and then he's like, listen, I'm doing this project with Corner Focus. At the time, it was House of Boxing, but it changed over to Corner Focus.
Okay.
And he's like, listen, I have this connection with Curtis, his name, the director, the owner. He's like, why don't you work with him, because he's looking for someone to be their secretary. He needed an administrative assistant.
So is this when you left the healthcare space, or you were doing both?
Right. I was just going to check it out and see what it was,
yeah.
Because I'm at the end of the day, I love doing charity, and I'm a philanthropist,
Right. No. Oh, I got it. Yeah, because you have to earn a living, but you're able to get into the space that you really wanted to be in.
Right.
But you're kind of navigating, but you're in that world.
Right. So I talked to him, and he was like, yeah, I'm looking for someone to be an administrative assistant, whatever. Right. We'll go, I go to like these different events, and I connect, and, to try to make, we get all these boxing equipment for the children in underprivileged areas.
New York. So you're in New York, right?
I'm in New York. I never leave New York.
Right. But New York is the Mecca. So
right. But he's based out of South Carolina.
Oh,
right.
Okay.
So everything was on virtual and
I got it.
That.
Okay.
Right. And we would fly down there to have like in-house meetings and stuff of that nature. So I ended up working with Curtis. I ended up becoming his program director.
What year are we in, if you can remember?
God.
Is this like Was it
Probably
10 years?
2018, I would
Okay,
say.
that's not
Something
that.
like
Yeah,
it's
all
not
right.
really that
No,
crazy.
all right. Yeah.
Maybe the end of 2017.
Yeah,
early
but still, it's
2018.
not that long ago.
No.
Even though, yeah.
Yeah. So I ended up starting to work with Curtis as
Right.
administrative assistant, and then he moved me up to program director. And we were looking for different boxers that we could work with that have gyms in underprivileged neighborhoods, so that we could help the children out there.
Yeah.
So we had a certain criteria. They had to have a children's program, a certain amount of children, and those things. So I helped him go to those boxing gyms, and we would give out protective equipment. So we would give out hand wraps, headgear, boxing gloves, all this different equipment to the children.
How old were the children?
Oh, God, they're all different ages. So they started, it ranged from I think 8 to 17.
So you're starting again with children. It's interesting because you go think about it, because you start in the hospital in the L&D area.
Right,
Now it's like,
right,
okay,
yeah, sure.
now you're back in this next chapter or new chapter,
Right.
or and now you're starting again working with kids and doing stuff in the
Right.
community, and it's just kind of interesting.
Right. So one of the first programs that I did with him was with the boxer Tony Harrison. He's based out of Detroit.
Right.
So that was one of the first actual programs that I did with him. He did many programs before that, and I kind of helped on the back end. But I'm like, all right, I'll help you with this one too, since I was becoming his program director at that time. Now I had to be more directly hands-on involved. So we flew to Detroit.
Okay.
We went
I see there's interesting the parallels with when the operate. I'm saying where you started. When you were working back in the in L&D, and then you met.
No matter what situation I'm in or what area of life
Yeah.
it is, if I have to start doing this, that'll be fine. I'll start as your administrative assistant, but I'm going to move up.
Yeah, no, that's the thing, and that's the
gonna move up,
that's the
I always
connection.
have my eyes on where I'm going. I always have my eyes on.
And it makes sense too, because think about sports and competitive sports,
Right.
and that competitive nature,
Right.
to win. It's just it makes a lot of sense. So the parallel is you get in the door's open for Danique. You better watch out, because Danique's coming.
Better watch
right?
your back.
She's coming. But no, that's testament to that's having a real skill set and the ability to be a leader and to work hard and just to have that focus. So
Thank you.
Yeah. So what I was going to say is combat sports media's primarily been, I guess, mostly male, but although we are starting to see more, I guess, women, or not as much in the combat.
Well, you are seeing more women these days, especially because you have this whole push for women's boxing. I'm saying as far as boxing is concerned.
Yes.
Other sports too, you definitely saw even within the WNBA, you saw a big
rugby.
push.
Even right?
Huge. So you're seeing women more being pushed to the front with sports, but as far as with
what are your thoughts on that?
With boxing, you would see like Jake Paul. He just did this whole thing. He started his whole company doing all focus basically on female boxers. It'll be a whole female card. So he has Alicia Bumgardner, she's a really big boxer, Amanda Serrano, Katie Taylor, he has those there under his banner. And, I think it's a beautiful thing. I really do.
Cool.
Although, as I said before, I grew up more very traditional. My dad would never let me do boxing. Right. It was something that he wouldn't even consider. I was never allowed to do.
Young women weren't boxing.
No,
kids were little.
It was play tennis, play volleyball.
Yeah, you're not. You're not getting hit in the face.
You're definitely not getting hit in the face. You're definitely.
We're not letting that happen to you.
My dad was so much I couldn't even go to kindergarten. Back then, you didn't have to go to kindergarten.
Right.
So I didn't go to kindergarten. I went to first grade.
Oh, you scared? Okay.
Yeah. So my dad was she's too little to go to kindergarten. I don't want her going to kindergarten, What? And my mom, Mom, why didn't you say anything? She's I couldn't say anything to him. Their whole family agreed. So,
You skipped kindergarten. Start right from first grade.
So, my grandma has, taught me everything that I needed to know, how to read, my basic reading and stuff like that.
You're now one of the few female voices in boxing, right?
Right.
I mean, boxing, when it comes to being an analyst and analyzing the sport and really understanding the sport.
It's definitely still a male-dominated industry. It just is.
Yes. So let me ask you. So being a woman in a male-dominated industry, how does it work? How do you feel? I mean, how do you explain? I mean, What is it like?
Growing up with so many boys in my family, because it was like I said, it was my mom's the only child, and then so my grandma, she had 3 sons, and then her sisters had like a bunch of boys.
So you grew up really around
boys everywhere.
So you were used to it.
They would come to my dad's house.
So this is this is an extension of what you grew up with, basically.
Right.
So it's not
me,
new, right?
To be with all boys, never.
No, all right, I got you.
I never felt uncomfortable, or anything like that, because I was used to being one of the only girls there.
And they probably
it was me, 2 of my cousins,
right?
And until my sister was born, that was years later, and then it was just.
They probably took you in though, right? I would think, in the community,
or in the boxing community,
or no.
It's always when you deal with. It's always
not to put you on the spot. I don't know.
Good old boys club, when it comes down to things like that. It's just sports.
Yes.
And anything. Even the operating room is the good old boys club. It's just like that. The world it's changing, but it's a
how did you navigate?
Slow process.
So how did you navigate? How did you navigate when you're in that kind of a situation?
I would say always just to keep it very professional. I always like to keep myself professional, because when you're in the music, when you're in the entertainment industry,
yes,
there's a lot of egos.
Of course,
there's a lot of
goes with
right. It goes hand in hand.
Yes,
there's a lot of that is there, is present, and especially is a lot of testosterone in the boxing industry. All sports, but in the boxing industry, there's a lot of testosterone. So, I always try to be just as professional.
That's good. Yeah, you stay in your lane. And
right, and let them know I'm here for work.
Right.
I'm here to do an interview. I'm here to get the footage. I'm here to watch what's going on with the post conference,
right?
Weigh-ins, or whatever it is. That's what I'm here.
I'm right here.
I'm not here to party and socialize.
Right. I got it. I'm here. I'm right here.
I'm here to do a job.
Exactly.
Basically,
you're here with them. And I'm here to get the job.
Right.
And now,
the good thing was because the person who introduced me to the behind the scenes of the boxing industry, which was Curtis with Corner Focus, he was very professional. He was extremely professional and perfectionist.
Okay.
So he always he's very I would say he's a perfectionist. He's a very business orientated. So it was very much take care of business, make sure this is straight, and you won't have any problems. So I kind of just took that motto on.
Yeah, well, as a woman in the boxing media space, do you feel like you're able to bring kind of a different perspective?
I think that it definitely brings a different perspective when men speak to women, and when they speak to another man, it's different. So I think that, because, it's easier for them to speak with me,
right?
Than it is to speak with, I wouldn't say easier, but I don't know.
No, I
feel like men are a little bit more softer when they speak to women. Sometimes, not all the times.
Right.
I haven't really had any problems.
Okay. Great analysts, they don't just watch a fight. They really understand the mechanics of the sport. So when you're preparing for an interview, as now you're kind of in this is the other thing. Now you're in the space, right? You're actually doing it. Just to back up for a sec, you're out there now interviewing people.
Right.
In the boxing.
I gather a lot of information, and I go back. I will gather the information, and I go back and I talk on my channel, talk with on the Ryan Show, because I'm on the Ryan Show.
Yeah, talk to us a little bit about that,
and stuff like that, and what's happening in sports, and I'm on those 2 shows, and I will go out into the field, get the information, and then bring it back and analyze it with them.
What are the things that you analyze in boxing? What are the things? I mean, when it
it's more than just the skill, I would say. Because when you look at a boxer, when you look at a person, it's a whole. As a whole. This person, they can have great skills, but if they're not focused, they're not going to be a great boxer, or they're not going to last long in the industry. So when you say I go to a boxing away, or not even we're not even going to get as far as a weigh-in. Say I would go to a press conference. So when you go to the press conference and they're talking back and forth, and you see who's more invested in the fight, who's more laid back, who who looks like it's going to be harder for them to get in shape. Who, because the post conference comes 2 months, 3 months sometimes before the fight. So you see all those things and you kind of get a feel for where this person is mentally in their life. And also, it kind of makes my job a little bit easier on social media because you see everything that's going on with people.
Right.
So I know if this particular boxer guy is going through a divorce, he's going to be a lot less focused than he would be if his marriage was intact.
Right, the mindset.
It's all or if he has a brand new DWI.
Right.
Or if, I don't mean to be negative or anything.
No, you're speaking.
Or if he just got married.
No,
or if he just had a baby.
You're talking about the mind.
You know
and
what
how
I mean?
the mind affects
that's how the mind affects
their performance
and how their performance and what's going to go on with them in the ring ultimately. Yeah. And you can see that all the way before they get to the ring. You can see that months before they get to the ring.
So let me ask you just one more question on the the boxing analyst side. What makes a great boxing analyst? And is when you're analyzing the sport, are you paying attention to how many punches are thrown per round, or do you get that technical with it, or is it because I don't I don't know. I'm asking as a
I would say what makes a great analyst is the ability to understand the sport. First of all, you have to understand the sport. You have to understand the history of the sport. That's the first thing.
And you grew up with the sport,
right? So you have to understand that. You have to understand the mechanics of the sport. You have to understand the rules. And also, you have to understand the mental health behind that's like a key, that a lot of people
and that
miss.
Actually connects to the two other. So POV and then also game mindset.
Right. Game mindset is through new network solutions
right.
Organization. That's who I'm working with. That's the network that I'm working with, and they came up with the show Game Mindsets.
Okay.
And they thought that I'd be the perfect person to.
You are.
Okay.
It
makes sense. I'd be a great person.
It makes sense, right?
We're actually waiting to do the rollout. So we're waiting to get a few more interviews in, and then we'll be doing the rollout of that. And we work with both, with UFC fighters and boxers. So it's combat sports. So
wow.
It's combat, UFC, and boxing. So it's the two of them together. So I'll interview coaches or team members or the actual previous athlete, a previous UFC fighter or a current with that. But a lot with this show is we want to kind of delve into the mindset of the fighter or the coach or whoever it is that we're interviewing,
right? And
kind of get into their mind about how they feel about what's going on in the sport or what happened in their career or what happened with their with their client in the career.
Yeah, there's a lot of psychology that you don't, and I would think, that boxers going into the ring, are they carrying maybe memories of the fight that they just had, maybe.
That's big. Again, so when you would go to these press conferences and things of that nature, if you have a guy who was undefeated and then he was undefeated.
Right.
For say 25 fights.
Right.
Lost his first fight.
Right.
Okay, now this is someone who's going to be devastated.
Yeah.
Because don't forget, in the boxing industry, Floyd Mayweather, made it so that you got to be undefeated.
Undefeated.
Floyd Mayweather's undefeated.
Right.
So, it's a lot of people wanted to go with that method. So no one wants to have a 0 on their record. No one wants to have that 1 on their record. Everybody wants a 0.
Yeah, that's not easy.
It's a lot of pressure on them. It's
huge amount of pressure.
Yeah. But it's crazy because if you look at all the greats, Muhammad Ali, he lost.
Yeah.
You saw Muhammad Ali lose, come back, Sonny Liston, George Foreman, these people, they lost.
Does it go back to that at some point? Or is it the bar's now set?
At great boxing.
Is the bar just set you're great because if you just you've taken no losses?
Right. It's the Floyd Mayweather. The Floyd Mayweather.
And sometimes
he did that, and that's why they didn't want to take any losses. So it kind of changed the boxing industry for a minute. Now it's changed back, but it kind of changed it for a minute to where people didn't want to, the boxers were oh, he might beat me. I'm not going to take that fight.
Let me ask you a
You
question.
know, so then like you don't have you don't have these great matches
Right.
happening that the people want to see, the fans want to see. I wouldn't say messed up boxing because I don't want to say like, you know, boxing was ever at a time where it was like messed up because I love the sport.
Right.
But it was definitely like a specific era of boxing where a lot of great fights couldn't get made because the politics behind it. And now
Right.
I feel like that's kind of adjusting itself because people have lost and we still want to see them fight.
Absolutely.
You know? Great, you know, like a current boxer, say like Ryan Garcia. You know, he lost, but we still want to see him fight. You know?
Right.
People, you know, Devin Haney has a lot of fans. Like, you know, he lost. People still want to see him fight. You know, and people want to see, you know, these great fights happen, like them fight Tank. You know, Tank doesn't have any losses, but you know, it's just we want to see these great fights being made, and you do see these fights being made now. So, you know, it has kind of shifted. The energy has kind of shifted away from that. But, you know, obviously no one likes to lose ever.
Well, you have a really interesting story. I mean, you know, you must think it's interesting, you know? I mean, how you got, I mean,
it's my story though.
It's a great, I mean, it's a great, and excited to see where everything, you know, where your career takes you next. But so great for you to come out and join us and tell us about your background and how you you know, you got back into journalism and specifically, you know, in the sports area and boxing and connecting it back to your dad and, you know, all the way back to growing up watching boxing with your dad. So pretty amazing.
You know, I would never I would watch, you know, watch the girls, like the one or two girls that you would see, like the commentators, and you'd be like, oh, I want to do that, you know, like how do you do that, you know? And I still want to do that.
Yeah,
but
you're doing it. But you're doing it. So,
but yeah, so my, you know, my TikTok is where it's at.
Yeah. Do you want to tell some people, you know, where to check out your stuff?
Oh, sure. So you can check me out on TikTok, my boxing POV. You can check out my Instagram, my boxing POV, and my YouTube, my boxing POV. I'm also on the Ryan Show. And that's channeled through Fox Sports.
Also,
and What's Happening in Sports.
Our buddy Nate.
Fox Sports Radio.
Who hooked us up.
Yep. So you can
shout to Nate Brown Jr.
Shout
to Nate. Big shout.
So you can
and the
see
crew.
my analyst there on with Fox Sports.
Yes.
And Fox Sports Radio. And, you know.
Great.
It's a climb.
Yes.
It's
keep
a
it
mountain
going.
that I'm climbing.
Keep it going. But it was so great to have you, especially for the first, you know, of this new curated series, The Culture of Sports. So happy to have you here. Thanks.
Thank you so much. Yes, it was an honor.
Great.